Hey everyone, welcome to Tina Lorraine. And today will be the first of many interviews of what I want to call my chat show portion of my lifestyle website. And today I'm honored to introduce you to my very dear friend, Lisa Marini. She is a brain coach. That's right, you heard me right. She is a brain coach. Now, Lisa, thank you so much for having the time to spend with us today and helping me launch my new lifestyle site.
Oh, it's such an honor. Thank you so much for having me and congratulations. This is so wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Lisa offers a wide range of resources to assist us in fully understanding the organ that is in charge of it all, our brain, and how to optimize and care for our brain. And at the end of our interview today, Lisa will provide a special offer to show us how to sign up for her services. So please stay tuned. I love your tagline, rewire your brain for a powerful life. How did you come up with that?
It's just the truth of it. I think that, we really do create our reality based on our thoughts. If we see the world as dangerous, if we see it as we're victims of our circumstances
Mm,
and we're in doom and gloom all the time, that becomes our reality. And we often get stuck in those patterns and that type of wiring. So if we change it and we start to shift our perceptions and our beliefs, and we start seeing the silver lining, we start seeing the positive, we start feeling those happier thoughts and emotions, that then becomes our reality. So we can rewire, we can change our lives.
and you've done that.
I have.
Can you tell the audience how you got into becoming a brain coach? Because you
Absolutely.
developed this whole service and courses and all of this, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is a modality that I'm pioneering. Most people have never heard of brain coaching before. And I love it. I love that people are like, what is that?
Yeah.
So most of my life, I worked in construction and I was a superintendent for a multifamily general contractor. And then I moved into project management, but that was my reality. That was my world. And for 17 years, these projects were big. They were 50 to maybe $85 million.
Mm,
And I was kind of in charge of all of it. So it was me and a bunch of, difficult people, as you can imagine, being the only woman.
yeah.
And that was, gosh, 25 plus years ago. So it wasn't normal for women to be on a construction site, let alone lead one.
Yeah.
So the levels of stress were through the roof. And I started to develop a lot of interesting things happening to me in my 30s. I had incredible memory loss, which is so scary to not have your memories.
Especially that young.
Yes.
Yeah.
And brain fog, my hair was falling out, amongst quite a few other physical problems I was encountering, and chronic migraines. That was the real big one, that these migraines would end me up in the hospital at times.
Mm,
And they would last for weeks and months on end. And maybe I'd have a day break and then there we'd go back to these headaches. It was just this chronic thing. And
wow.
every single doctor I went to, from Eastern to Western, specialists, holistic, energetic type practitioners, everybody told me it was stress.
Uh,
And you can imagine, I thought I was pretty tough and I thought I could out tough stress, I'm way stronger than stress. I can just force my way through it. And I eventually saw a presentation about the brain and actually what happens to the brain under stressful conditions. And it was the biggest aha moment for me, where I went, oh, this is a biological thing, no different than I can't control my eyes dilating. I can't control my heartbeat. I can't really control stress's effects on my brain and body. So when I started to look at it from that perspective, that's what really piqued my interest. And of course, from there, I voraciously consumed information.
yeah.
I became a junkie of neuroscience and biology and all of the things that really intrigued me about this, mostly applied neuroscience. And So the more that I learned, the more I was passionate about it, the more I would talk about it. And the more people would say, can you teach me? Can you show me what you're doing? How are you managing your stress? And I started sort of taking clients or leading classes, even on construction sites, right? The guys would sit around and be eating their lunch, listening to me talk about the brain and stress.
Wow.
And it sort of just became to where I was getting so many clients and so many people wanting to work with me. I didn't have time to do both. And I had to make that decision. So that's really what drove me to doing this work.
And this was what, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
About 4 years ago is when I really made the official leap. I had been doing it for probably a year prior. So yeah, about 5 years. But yeah, I officially left my construction career then. So
congratulations.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, it's been such a fun, wild, amazing journey.
Yeah. That is so fantastic. Now, you know that I have taken your 6-week class on brain basics. I've actually taken it twice, which is not unusual, is it?
No, it's not. That, you know, there's a lot of information there. And we show up in different mind states when we're you know, sometimes we're super stressed, sometimes we're really open. We learn different things at different times. So, you know, no different than watching a movie more than once. You find new things, and there's new ways in which you relate to that. So it is not abnormal to have taken the class more than once. I've had people take it more than twice as well. So
I think I remember you telling me that, because I was like, okay, I want to take it again. Is that weird? And you're like, no, I've had people take it multiple times. And I know you asked, I took the class the first time in July of 2019. And I know you ask your students to give 100%, which I think I gave about 25% when I look back on it. But I also realized that that was my 100% back then because of where I was. But I think one of the biggest gifts I got from that was truly well defining my intention or my why, or what you call your true north, right? Because I don't think you can really accomplish any of your goals if you don't have that well-defined intention, or if you don't know the direction that you want to head. So I think that was one of the biggest things I got out of that first class that set me on the path to decide to go ahead and take it again this summer, which I gave it 100% this time, and just I got so much out of it. And I think one of the main things, which is something I'd like you to talk about today, if you're comfortable doing that, I love the way you describe the frat boy part of your brain and the diva part of your brain. Can you tell the audience a little bit about those two parts?
Absolutely. You know, when I teach class, it's important for me to make it fun, to make it relatable. So I always come up with these crazy analogies and fun ideas of how to present information. And, you know, the interesting thing about the brain is that it cannot discern the difference between a thought and an actual event happening. So if we're worried or feel frustrated or anxious about paying our mortgage, let's say, I mean, money's always a topic for people, versus an imminent threat actually happening, the brain doesn't know that the worry or frustration about the money isn't a threat that's actually happening right now.
Like a bear coming after you.
Absolutely.
Right?
A bear coming after you, or something, you know, incredibly dangerous. And so that response is called a limbic response. And we go into a fight and flight state. And that part of the brain, the reason I refer to it as a frat boy, I call that part of the brain a frat boy, is because there's no conditions that it needs to survive, right? Think of how gross it might be to live in a frat house, and probably, right? It's a little crazy to think about, you know, there's probably, you know, they're eating a lot of ramen and ding dongs and maybe alcohol and not sleeping. And that part of the brain's still going to keep them safe, right? It's the part of the brain that is for survival. That if they were to, the frat house catches on fire, they're going to react to that. No matter if they weren't sleeping or if they were partying too much, they're still going to react. So that's what I refer to as, having frat boy mentality. And the other part of the brain is the diva. It's the prefrontal cortex. That's the very rational part of the brain, the thinking part of the brain. But the reason I call it the diva is because it needs very specific conditions to access it. It needs really good nutrition. And that's something that I talk about in the 6-week course. Nutrition is a big piece of brain health. It needs good quality sleep. It needs a really good environment, not a lot of negative thought patterns and drama and stuff like that, although you're thinking of it as a diva, but it just needs very, very good conditions to thrive. And so these two areas of the brain work inversely from one another. So if we're not setting our physical environment up in a way for these areas to thrive, right? If we're not giving it these very nurturing, great conditions, we're automatically going to be more predisposed to be in a fight and flight response. So we really do kind of have to clean up the house. We have to get out of that frat boy house and move into a mansion, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they both don't operate at the same time, right? You're either in one or the other.
Yeah. And that's kind of a gross overgeneralization, because in neuroscience, if you were to look at it, there's so many things happening in the brain. But in applied neuroscience, yes, these two areas compete for resources. So you're either reactionary and emotional, or you're non-reactionary and you're very well thought out and processed. So that's, the fight that we have kind of going on within our brain.
Right. And I think the biggest gift of that is recognizing. I'm now able to recognize when I'm in that limbic state, when I'm in that frat boy state, because there's certain things that start happening to your body. Your heart starts racing, you start getting really warm. And I'll stop myself and go, okay, what just happened that I'm starting to get this feeling? So you can kind of work your way through it. And you give lots of tips and tricks on how to move out of that state. But I also think it's helpful because now I can recognize when it's happening to someone around me.
Absolutely.
And help them move out of it if they don't recognize, what's happening with their brain. And it's really perception. We perceive that there's danger there. So that's the way our mind is going to react, which is the way our body's going to follow and react that way as well.
Yeah, we've never really been taught how to regulate that, right? And we might end up staying in that state for hours or days. I've had weeks on end where my kids don't want to be around me because I'm really snippy and irritable, and they're like, "Ooh, mom's prickly," and it's and you wonder, like, God, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that you're in a different brain state and you don't have necessarily have learned the tools of how to manage that. That's why I teach what I teach.
Yeah. Well, and as most of my audience probably knows, and I've been an employee benefits consultant and broker for 35 plus years now. And it seems like the last 10 or so years, we're talking a lot about how stress impacts a person's health. And it sounds like what you're saying is right on. I mean, that's what they were telling you was causing your hair loss and brain fog. So I can't imagine that it's not causing a lot of other, I guess, side effects, because your body, when you're in that state, in that frat boy or that limbic state, I think you said something about all your resources go to help you get out of that dangerous or perceived dangerous state. So they're shutting down, or maybe putting your other organs on like battery mode or whatever.
Yeah.
So your, I don't know, tell me more about that. Tell us more about.
So when we go into that fight and flight response, it's the nervous system that engages is the sympathetic nervous system, right? We have to be prepared for danger. So we need every ounce of resource that we have to move to our extremities. We want our muscles to be strong so that we can fight or we can run really fast. I would be running. I would not be fighting. So all of the resources normally at the midline that are using resources, your digestion,
Mm.
your immunity, your reproductive organs, those dial down because they get reallocated. So when people are having digestive issues, even if they're eating perfectly, it can be a stress response. They're not digesting it well. They're still gaining weight, which is a result of the cortisol that gets released.
Oh, because
Mm-hmm.
you're getting a big surge of that.
Yes, you
The
are. And
adrenaline, the cortisol.
mhm,
Okay.
cortisol does a lot of damage to the body. Additionally, the reproduction, we're not going to be reproducing if there's a burglar in the house, and so people may have a hard time getting pregnant. They may have low libido. They may not be in the mood. That is a good indicator that stress is very prevalent in their life. And immunity, right?
Oh,
That's one of a resource that we don't have time for if we're dealing with imminent threat. But that's why every doctor right now is saying, hey, reduce your stress to improve your immunity. We need it now more than ever. That's the reason why, is because once we reallocate those resources, our immune system dials down.
wow. Can you give us just one little tip on how to move out of that state into the diva part?
Yeah,
Is there
for
anything we
sure.
can do? Just a
Yeah,
handy
I
little
think
tip
the
for us.
best tool, and it's one of the easiest tools, and it's something that can be so universal that it can be, your children, if there's any viewers that have small children, to teenagers like me, but even, anybody can use this, and it's shaking, right? Full on shaking
Oh,
your body. And it's weird, right? To kind of think like, why would I shake? Well, shaking is one of the best tools, and it's something that we can look at in our environment. Look at other mammals. And if you have dogs, I know you have 3 dogs,
yep.
and I'm sure if there's fireworks, do you notice them shaking or quivering?
Thunderstorms.
Yes. If you bring them to the vet, do you see them shaking
Oh,
if they get out of the
their
pool?
little ears are just,
High alert, right?
yeah.
And what they're doing is they're shaking. What they're doing is dissipating that adrenaline and cortisol that gets released in a sympathetic arousal. And so they're
Hmm.
completing the fight and flight response. Us humans don't. We stuff it, right? We're angry at our boss, or we're angry at our spouse, and we want to just strangle them, or we want to shake them or do whatever, or we want to run away from the situation. We want to fight, or we want to flee. And we can't up and leave. We can't leave a meeting in the middle. We can't just pack our bags and move to Jamaica and sell coconuts. Although I've thought about it plenty of times. It's just not a social norm. And so we just sort of stuff that response, and then we can, explode. We might freak out over somebody spilling a glass of milk. So shaking actually builds a reserve. There's a modality created around it called TRE, tension release exercise. And there's lots of research for vagal toning and sort of this whole process that happens somatically when we can regulate our body. But it's just such a great tool. So you think about it with small children, you can't tell them to calm down. They just don't have the ability to understand that. But if you put on some music and everybody has a big movement dance party, or jumping jacks, or they shake out their sillies, it really does help us get out of that fight and flight response. It's a great tool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I know we've talked a little bit about the 6-week course that you offer called Brain Basics.
Yeah.
Tell me what else, what other services you have to offer.
Yeah. So thank you for asking that. So one of the things, like you said, I do teach an online 6-week course. It meets remotely every week for 6 weeks for about an hour. I'm also a hypnotherapist, and 90% of our brain is subconscious. And so I would be a terrible brain coach if I was neglecting 90%. Everything in our brain that is an association based comes from the subconscious, meaning you like dogs, right? You love dogs. I'm not a big fan of dogs. And that simply goes back to a childhood time where I was attacked by a dog. And it doesn't mean that you're better or I'm better or you're smarter or I'm smarter. It just simply means how we associate to something. You have a positive association to dogs. I have a negative association. And all that does is it drives our behavior. And so you'll probably see a dog and run up and pet it. I will probably back away. So most everything that we have is based in association, not through our conscious mind, but we can start to change these associations in hypnotherapy. It is one of the most powerful tools that I have access to that can really dramatically shift things that have been habits or beliefs for years and years. It works phenomenal for quitting smoking, for stopping sugar, for having more self-esteem, for not eating junk food, for having better body image. I mean, I've used it with so many people. It's really, really incredibly powerful.
So this would help us understand or better understand why we do things we don't want to do. Like we'll say, well, I want to lose some weight, but then in a couple of days we're cheating on the nutrition plan, or I want to get in better shape, but we can't seem to even take that first step to working out. Or it's just, I want to cut back on my drinking, but you end up drinking more. That will help people understand the subconscious
Yes.
programming that we have, and then rewire that so
Mhm.
that you at least are aware of why you're taking these actions that you said that morning you didn't want to do. But then
Absolutely.
by that night, you're like, what? This is not my intention for today.
Right. Well, and Tina, I do talk about that actually in the 6-week course. It's, if
Oh,
you
good.
remember week
Yeah.
one, I'm using some neurolinguistic programming techniques because the conscious mind sets the goals, but it's the subconscious mind that actually obtains the goals. So I give some tools in week one of how to do that, like through an exercise, through a mindful based way of approaching it through NLP. But hypnotherapy, I direct somebody through it. It's not them doing the process. I'm sort of doing the heavy lifting and helping them change those associations while they're in a different brain state. So that's an incredibly powerful tool. I also teach neurosculpting. I'm a neurosculpting facilitator. Neurosculpting is an amazing meditation modality that's based in neuroscience. So most people that I ask, when I ask them, hey, have you meditated before? Do you like it? And a lot of people are like, oh man, it's a waste of time. Like all I can think about is all the emails I have to reply to and what's going on
Yeah,
in
it's
the world.
hard.
It's hard. We have that chattery part of the brain, and neurosculpting really addresses that. It's a very, very active meditation. We're not trying to not trying to not have thoughts. A lot of meditations, you're only supposed to breathe and release and not have any thoughts. This actually invites you to have a lot of thoughts, and we're recreating realities through it.
Now you baked a little bit of that into the 6-week
I
course,
did,
right?
yes.
Okay, I do remember that part of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I do give a taste of what neurosculpting is like. I love
Okay.
that. I also offer nutrition, through coaching or also through the Brain Basics course. Brain-based nutrition is critical, right? I mean, we oftentimes think we're going to change our way of eating so that we fit into that awesome pair of designer jeans that we
Yep.
just got, or that we want to have better performance at the gym. But not a lot of people are thinking about it, how to fuel the diva part of the brain. It does take very specific food and fuel to create neurotransmitters and to create that cognitive performance. So I work with nutrition, and there's a lot of other things, that a lot of other tools and trainings that I have that really do help people downregulate that fight and flight response. Cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness based stress reduction techniques, different types of meditation. Heart math is one of the tools that I use with people. Emotional freedom technique, EFT, the tapping, if you've ever heard of that. So
Yes, I have.
lots of really fun stuff that as you can tell, I'm a collector of learning and certifications. So there's lots of fun stuff I have that we can play with in
Well, it
sessions.
sounds like you can tailor it to the individual. So it sounds to me like the best thing to do is to take the 6-week course, just to learn about all of the services that you provide, and then all of the knowledge that you will share within that course. And then if that individual wants to, or you can make recommendations on what their next steps should be as far as a protocol to get them to that ultimate goal or whatever it is they're trying to achieve in their life. Because you work with companies too, right?
Yeah, I do. So
Okay.
I actually teach this Brain Basics course a lot within companies. It's amazing for teams to have new technology, have a new way to relate to one another. And when people are showing up with, less brain fog, they're thinking clearly, they're not triggered, they're, really focused and etc. Of course, they're going to be better employees getting their work done more. They're going to be better with their clients. So companies invest in this work and they see a really big change in their employees, and the employees feel amazing because they're invested in, right? They feel like, wow, we're learning some great tools that not only I use at work, but I use at home. They're life tools. And yes, the Brain Basics class is really a great way to start what you were saying, because it does offer all the foundation, the languaging of what we're going to be talking about. And it really, that's why I call it the basics class.
Yep.
It's a little bit of everything. It's kind of the buffet. And then later, if you want to go back and have something more specific, that's where I definitely tailor it to each of my clients.
Well, perfect. That is so perfect. I really want to thank you again for having the time to talk to us today and share all of the services that you have to offer. And as I mentioned at the top of our interview, we have a special offer for those that are viewing today. It is 10% off of any of the services that you have. And the code will be TINA10. And tell us how we can get to your website and schedule a class, or how does all that work?
Absolutely. So the web address is lmarini.com. It's my last name, MARINI.com. And when you get on the site, notice that right at the main page there, you can book a free consultation.
Oh, perfect.
Always important for me to have people feel like this is a fit for them. Is this class the right place to start? Should I jump into hypnotherapy? Should I do something different? And that way they're not just jumping in and investing and wondering if it's the right thing. I'll help you navigate what I think is a good fit. So you'll see that right at the beginning. On the main page. And then on the top part, you can see where there's different offerings. There's the classes, and then there's group classes that will lead you to the 6-week brain course. On there, it will break down what we cover in each week, so you have a better idea of kind of the structure of that. And yeah, so just poke around lmarini.com. You're also able to book any sessions on the site too. You can, in the client portal, there's a link that will bring you to my calendar. And if you're like, I'm already sold, I'm going to do hypnotherapy, jump on there and you can find either remote hypnotherapy, which so many people are doing this remote, and it's just as powerful as doing it in person.
I bet.
And any kind of coaching you can do. So you can book all your stuff through the site, or you can text me or email me. My phone number is 720-515-5755. Feel free to text or email lisa.m.marini@gmail.com.
Perfect. And I'm going to have all of this in the comments when I am finished with this interview, to make sure that people know how to find you. I'm thinking this would be a great Christmas present. I mean, it just seems like we're in a time where we're renegotiating all different aspects of our life. And I think I've heard a lot of people are tidying up and they're clearing out a lot of their junk. So why not buy someone this type of present instead of more stuff?
Yeah.
I think this would be so valuable. And maybe even a family take the course together. You would work with a group. How many do you like to have in your class?
Well, it really depends. I like to have around 10 to 15 is a good size. If it's a family and there's 8 of you or something like that, I'm so willing to work with that. Ultimately my goal and purpose on this planet is to be in service. And if this is something that feels really good for you and your family to do together, let's do it, right? Let's do it. And like you said, what an awesome Christmas gift, especially starting at the new year. I'll have the resolutions. Well, most of us, we set goals in the wrong way in the first place, not by, not that we're intending to. We just aren't communicating to the subconscious mind that is the part of the brain that actually obtains your goals. So I can help you actually be set up for success for the brain to understand what it is your goal is. So fantastic for New Year's resolutions.
Oh, yeah. And especially coming out of this year, I'm sure everybody wants to just get this 2020 off of them and start 2021 fresh. And what a great way to do it, with just understanding your brain and rewiring some of those old beliefs and those stories that we've told ourselves. So very cool. Very cool. Well, Lisa, it's so good to see you, friend. And I thank you so much for helping me kick off my lifestyle website and blog. And I hope that you'll hear from a lot of the folks to sign up for your program. And again, thanks so much.
Thank you. It's such an honor. I really appreciate it. And congratulations again.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. All right. Bye.
Bye, Lisa.